Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is my Forbes colleague, money and politics reporter, Kyle Khan-Mullins. Kyle, thanks so much for joining me.
Always great to be here, Brittany. Thanks for having me.
You have a bit of boots on the ground reporting. You were crossing the street in Seattle earlier this week. You heard a familiar voice booming through the crosswalk. What did you hear? Bring us to the moment.
Yeah, so I walk my wife to class most mornings. We live near the University of Washington Law School, and I'm walking along. We go to the crosswalk. I hit the button that alerts the crosswalk that we're there and we're waiting to cross. And who do I hear speaking back to me but the voice of the second richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, Amazon founder. And he is talking about how, and it was clearly an AI generated recording, talking about this crosswalk is sponsored by Amazon Prime, and we shouldn't tax the rich very much, and otherwise we're all going to move to Florida. And it was a pretty surreal moment.
Wow. So, A, what I hear from that story, you're a great husband, walking your wife to class every day. But B, the voice is talking about affordability in the city of Seattle. They also mentioned Luigi Mangione. But how has the cost of living in Seattle really changed in recent years?
Yeah, so the recording talks about how wouldn't it be terrible if all the rich people left Seattle and then normal people could afford to live here again. That was the wording of the recording. And the wording also said something along the lines of if all the rich people in Seattle got Luigi'd, which I believe is a reference to Luigi Mangione, the alleged killer of the United Healthcare CEO in Manhattan last year. Um, there's a lot to unpack there, I would say. But regardless, I'll just point out that there's a lot of frustration in Seattle and in cities across the country with the cost of living going up. There's not been enough housing construction relative to the amount of population increase. Seattle's grown by something like 21% over the past 10 years, or between 2010 and 2020. The U.S. as a whole grew about 7% in that time, so that shows you how fast Seattle and some of these other big cities, especially on the West Coast, are growing. And I don't think housing construction has really kept up with that. Rent in the city of Seattle, a one bedroom goes for $2,200 now, a two bedroom goes for $3,000. Now I know I'm talking to a New Yorker here, so maybe that doesn't sound so bad, but to anyone else in the country, that might actually be somewhat high. So the cost of living is a serious issue here. I think there's a lot of frustration about it, and I think that there's some blame targeted at especially the ultra wealthy.
Housing affordability is a crisis that we're seeing crop up in cities across this country. But is this crosswalk hacking unique to Seattle? Are you seeing this happen and play out in other cities around the country?
So that's the other reason this stuck out to me is that I had seen reports earlier in the week. There were some similar incidents down in the Bay Area around San Francisco. Some of the crosswalks there were hacked to sound like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, sort of similar sounding political messages about the wealthy and billionaires and the billionaire class. And so when I heard this, I was like, it's come to Seattle. Honestly, I might have guessed it would have been in Seattle first, and Bay Area beat us to it. So it's these cities have a particular culture that does stuff like this.
So then you specifically heard it with your own two ears, but has the Seattle Department of Transportation responded at all to this hacking?
Yes. So the Seattle Department of Transportation, they sent me a statement. They said, we're aware of the issue. We are addressing it. It has cropped up. They said in multiple places around the city. It wasn't just in the University District where I live. And they also noted that they were concerned because these devices that were hacked are normally used by people who are blind or who can't see very well, and they're intended for those people to be able to cross the street and to know when it's safe to cross the street. And so they said in their statement that they were concerned that somebody would hijack those people's tools for those people to make a political statement.
And it's also concerning to wonder how exactly the culprit was able to hack into the system here. Is there any indication of that or any indication of who is behind this?
We don't know anything about who's behind it. As for how it was done, I saw some reporting from the Bay Area that these things often have Bluetooth signaling built into them, and Bluetooth is not the most secure of connectivity systems. I'm not a tech guy, so I'm not going to be able to answer this completely here, but my understanding is that's how it was done. And I did talked to us as he was trying there to fix the system, who told me that, yeah, they were told to change the password on the Bluetooth, among other things. So that might have been the issue.
Kyle, I'm hoping that you continue to walk your wife to class the rest of the week. And if so, were you able to hear the crosswalk again? Is it fixed yet?
So this was on Wednesday, and by noon of that day, I noticed that the crosswalk that we had used was completely disabled. Like, there was no audio when you hit the button at all. Not even the normal "please you can cross now" audio. However, one block away, I heard the sounds of the Bezos song continuing to play. So clearly they hadn't gotten to all of them, or someone had rehacked them after the workers had left. As of this morning, I didn't hear anything, and that second crosswalk that I heard of, that one was disabled entirely this morning. So that seems to be the strategy. The interim strategy seems to be shut off the audio entirely until we can figure out what's going on and put a stop to it.
Interesting stuff. Keep walking your wife to class to get us some more by-the-minute reports here. Kyle Khan-Mullins, I appreciate your on-the-ground reporting. Thanks for joining me.
Great to be here, Brittany. Thanks again.